All right. The lesson, we finished it yesterday, or we might have just needed to talk about like one more thing, which we will talk about right after the slideshow. All right, but here's how you'll be tested on quadratic roots and discriminant. You need to know what each of them are and to calculate them. For the quadratic roots, so far we only know how to calculate them by graphing. And for the discriminant, there's a formula. You need to know what that formula is and know what the value of the discriminant means when it comes to like number of solutions. So that's how you'll be tested today. If you missed yesterday, which nobody said anything, so I'm guessing you were all here. But if you missed yesterday, then this independent time that I'm going to give you right now to do the practice. Well, if you miss it, you can get caught up and watch the video and ask me or Mr. Ann any questions if you have them. Do not watch the video on mute. I want you to hear what's being said. If you're going to watch the video and listen to it, I want you to hear it. So you can use headphones for that. I don't mind. I also don't mind if you have your volume up on your computer to listen to it like in class. All right. There's no closed captioning. What I'm saying in there is important. So listen to it. Don't have it on mute. If you just want the notes, like definitions and examples, then go to School of Jude's already uploaded in there in a file. The practice is just evens or odds. Do those first. And then if you want to go back and do the rest, that's fine. But do the evens or odds first. I'll check that today around the time that you do your exit ticket. So we're definitely getting to the exit ticket today. We're going to be gradually decreasing the amount of time that we're giving you on the exit tickets. Because you have your Aspire Math test coming up on April 12th. And that is a timed test. And you're going to want to have an answer for every single problem, even if you don't necessarily finish. So that's also preparing you for when you take your SAT and ACT, because on those you get about 60 questions in 60 minutes. So 1 minute per question. All right. Today you'll have 2 questions on your exit ticket, and I'm giving you just 8 minutes. So just easing you into it. Later we'll do the start of the 8-5 lesson. So I'm gonna pause this recording and so like unpause it so that it keeps recording during the real lesson. But any questions at all? All right, so get to work on your practice. I'm gonna start with giving you 20 minutes. And then based on where we're at, I might give you like 5 more minutes. No longer than 25 minutes total. Yesterday, I don't remember how far we got, but I know some of my classes didn't get to the discriminant, or at least all the examples I wanted to show you. So the discriminant is used to determine the number of solutions. It's this formula that I highlighted right here. But I'm not giving you that formula on your test. However, it is on the board, part of the quadratic formula. So if you just memorize that it's under the square root symbol normally, then it is part of your provided formula. If you can remember that at least. So normally in the quadratic formula, we would take the square root of the discriminant. And the quadratic formula we'll get to another day. But in here, it helps us figure out the number of solutions or roots that we have. And the fact that we take the square root of it tells us a lot about how many solutions we'll have. Because if it's a positive number, so greater than 0, I should have 2 solutions. So like, for example, positive 36. Even if it's not a perfect square, you should still have 2 solutions. Like for positive 36, it would be a negative 6 or a positive 6. 2 solutions. For d equal to 0, so the discriminant equals 0 exactly. Well, what's the square root of 0? 0. And can I have a positive and a negative 0? No, it's just the 1, 0, right? So that's when there's only one solution if the discriminant comes out to equal 0. And then if it's less than 0, so like a negative number, can I take the square root of the negative number? No. So that's why if it's a negative number for your discriminant, there's no solution. And here's a few examples for each situation. So positive, negative, and equal to 0. All you're doing is identifying your A, B, and C, which we've done a lot, A, B, and C, and plugging it into the formula. If it's negative in the formula, then show that it's negative when you label your letters. All right, use the parentheses because it will make a difference when you put it in your calculator if you don't use parentheses when you plug something. All right, and then here's 3 situations. When it equals a positive, negative, or 0, and that's how many solutions you get. So any questions about that? All right. So then, sorry, I needed to make sure we covered that. But thank you, you guys can work on your practice.
Yep.
What?
So we are starting the 8.5 lesson, which is solving quadratics by factoring. So by now you know that quadratic roots, zeros, x-intercepts, solutions, they all mean the same thing. So when I'm saying like we're solving quadratic functions, I mean we're finding those roots. So like you found them by graphing yesterday. Well, now we're going to show you how to find them by factoring. Because sometimes graphing is kind of tedious. We don't always want to graph every single question. So here's like another way to do it. And then you'll learn even another way that's also helpful in certain situations. So factoring we did in topic 7, which is nice because if you were good at it and you liked it, well, then you'll probably be good at this. If you weren't good at it, well, then you get to have more practice on it. And if you ever want to come in Friday for a retake, then you will probably do better because we're seeing it again in this current unit. So in order to do that, you need to be able to set quadratic equations equal to 0. To factor one side of the quadratic equation. To set each factor equal to 0 and solve each factor for x. And then write your answer using the curly braces. I'm recording right now to whatever 2 examples or 3 maybe that we get to, so that it's in there. But there's tons of other videos too that I've just found really helpful over the years. So check those out if you feel the need. During the exit ticket, I handed out this paper, so you should all have it in front of you. I put it on every desk, even if you were in Ms. Duran's group. Yes.
Can I get my pencil from Mr.
Yes. All right. This introduction up here, same thing I just said to you when we were going over objective and success criteria. All right, all it basically says is that when we're asking for solutions, we are basically asking for solutions. We're basically asking for the roots or the zeros or the x-intercepts. And here's just one way that you can solve for it, which is now factoring. So first step, we are going to set the quadratic equation equal to 0. So what is this equation equal to right now? It's equal to y. So we're going to replace that y with a 0. That's the first step. And then just rewrite it. X squared plus 3x minus 10. Step 2 is to factor the other side. It's not necessarily going to be the left side always. But basically factor the side that's not 0. And you have to, like, if you have that flow chart that we made from the last unit still, that'd probably be a good resource in this lesson. Because how do I factor a trinomial in this format? Do I do the difference of squares rule? Do I use the diamond method? Divide and divide? Other one. The diamond method. So remember, A times C goes on the top. What number is in the A position? What number is in the C position? So A times C is, and then in the B position is the number that goes on the bottom. So what number is in the B position? And then I need two numbers that multiply to -10 but add to 3. There's not a lot of options for what multiplies to 10. So which of these two combinations might work? And one of them has to be negative, and it has to be because that's how you add to get a positive, is with a negative on the smaller number. Bring you back memories, I hope. All right, so then what we have so far is this. 0 equals x plus 5 in parentheses, and x minus 2. Those are our factors, each set of parentheses. That's what we multiply together normally. All right, step 3. We need to set each factor equal to 0 and solve each factor for x. So each factor, each thing that would normally be multiplied together is going to be set equal to 0. So I have x plus 5 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. And we're solving for x. How do you isolate a variable? Like, how would I get rid of this plus 5? Subtract 5. And then whatever I do on one side, you have to do to the other side. Now, just FYI, when you take your Aspire test, you're going to have to solve a problem and justify how you solved it. Well, saying like, well, whatever you do on one side, you have to do to the other would be a justification. All right, so just kind of keep that in mind for another day. Over here, how do I get rid of this minus 2?
Add 2.
You add 2 on both sides. Cancels out on the left, and x equals 2. So that's step 3. We solve for x for each factor. Questions? Last thing, we just want to make sure our answer is written with those curly braces we talked about. So I'll kind of squeeze it in down here. We would write it as x equals -5, comma 2, and then close your curly brace. Is it all right if I reverse the order of the numbers? Like if I put 2 -5 instead? It is fine, because I'm not talking about like a coordinate or anything. I'm just saying anytime I use curly braces, here's my answer, or here's my list of numbers that I can do. Questions at all? All right, do you guys want to try one, or do you want to see another one? Okay, I heard see another one, so I'll do that. Let's look at number 3 together. All right. So follow the steps. I'm going to scroll down, so you'll just have to look on your paper. First step is to set the equation equal to 0. Is this equation equal to 0? Yes. If it wasn't, like say it was equal to 4 or something like that, I would just subtract 4 on each side so that it becomes 0. All right, but it's already equal to 0. So step 1 is done. Step 2 is to factor the other side. How do I factor this? What method? The diamond method. What number will go on top? Good. So 1 times -2 is -2. And then B on the bottom, which is 1. What two numbers multiply to -2 but add to 1? Which one would have to be negative?
1.
Good. Question. here's what we have so far. X minus 1 and x plus 2 equal to 0. Step 3 is to set each factor equal to 0. Factors are things that you multiply together. So that parentheses being multiplied by the other one. So set them both equal to 0 and solve them separately for x. How do you get rid of a minus 1? Good. So add 1 to both sides. This cancels. X equals 0 plus 1, which is 1. Over here, how do I get rid of a plus 2? Good. Do that on each side of the equal sign. And then we get x equals -2. Write your answer with the curly braces. 1 and -2 go inside. And that's it. We'll do more examples tomorrow, so don't lose your notes. We'll do plenty of examples actually.